Bugattis are created to be forever. Bringing Bugatti and Rimac together made so much sense for everyone. It was one of these rare win-win-win.
Welcome to the Bugatti Tourbillon VP production. VP stands for Validation Prototype.
When Bugatti revealed the Tourbillon, it didn't just introduce a new hypercar. It changed the tone of the entire industry. A machine built with 800 horsepower, hybrid precision, and even mechanical watch-inspired instruments. It pushed beyond performance into philosophy. But what truly shocked the automotive world wasn't just Bugatti's statement, it was the response that never came. Koenigsegg, the brand known for shattering records and answering every challenge with engineering firepower, has stayed completely silent. No teaser, no countermove, no signal of what comes next. And in a rivalry defined by constant escalation, silence feels louder than any speed record. So the real question is simple. What does this silence actually mean? Let's break it down. When Bugatti changed the conversation. To understand the silence, you first have to understand what broke it. Or rather, what should have broken it, but did not. Bugatti's move came in the form of the Tourbillon, a hypercar that arrived and immediately rewrote the terms of the conversation about what a road-legal machine is allowed to be. The name alone carried weight. The Tourbillon is named after the most complex mechanism in mechanical watchmaking, a device designed to counteract the effect of gravity on a timepiece-size accuracy. Bugatti was not naming a car. Bugatti was making a statement about precision, about legacy, about the kind of engineering philosophy that measures ambition in fractions of a second and justifies every number with decades of documented excellence. The specifications were, by any reasonable standard, extraordinary. A naturally aspirated 8-liter W16 engine produces over 1,000 horsepower, working in concert with 3 electric motors that bring the combined system output
Turbocharged engine like the W16. So by combining the advantages of a naturally aspirated combustion engine
to 1,800 horsepower. A carbon fiber monocoque chassis built around the driver with the obsessive attention to structural geometry that defines Bugatti's approach to the intersection of safety and speed. A top speed target that places it among the fastest road cars in documented history. But what made the Tourbillon significant was not merely the numbers. Numbers have always been plentiful in the hypercar world, and ambition is cheap. What made it significant was the architecture behind the numbers. The hybrid system was not sourced from a supplier. It was designed, engineered, and manufactured entirely in-house. A declaration that Bugatti intended to own every element of its technical future rather than assemble it from available components. What set the Tourbillon apart further was its interior philosophy, something that hypercar manufacturers rarely invest in at this level of originality. The instrument cluster is not a screen. It is a collection of mechanical watchmaking components, gyroscopes, handcrafted dials, precision mechanisms assembled by watchmakers whose entire professional vocabulary exists in the space between tenths of a millimeter. The tachometer works on watchmaking principles. The speedometer operates through a mechanism that a Swiss watchmaker would recognize. Bugatti was arguing that the future of the hypercar interior was not digital but horological. Not a flat screen displaying information, but a physical object encoding it in motion and material. That argument has no obvious precedent in automotive history, and it was made with enough technical specificity to be taken seriously. For the hypercar community, the Tourbillon's arrival created an immediate expectation. Not about Bugatti, whose direction was now clear, but about Koenigsegg, because this is how this rivalry has always worked. One brand moves, the other responds, and the conversation between them produces the most technically compelling automotive chapter of any given year. The Agera RS had answered the Chiron. The Jesko Absolute had answered the Chiron Supersport. Every chapter of this rivalry has had two authors, which is precisely why, when Bugatti published the Tourbillon chapter and Koenigsegg returned nothing, the silence felt different from ordinary quiet. It felt like a word missing from a sentence that had always been written by two hands. What made Bugatti's move particularly pointed was its philosophical dimension. The Tourbillon was not simply faster or more powerful than what came before. It represented a shift in what Bugatti was willing to argue about the future of the hypercar.
It will be the most powerful production car in the world. It really is signalling the start of some significant investment.
What it should feel like, what it should represent, what standard it should hold itself to, across every discipline simultaneously. Luxury and performance not as competing priorities, but as expressions of the same underlying commitment to mastery. The Tourbillon was a manifesto, and Koenigsegg has not yet responded to a single word of it. When Koenigsegg stopped talking, silence in the hypercar world is not the same as silence anywhere else. These are brands that communicate constantly through reveal events and speed record attempts and engineering announcements, and the carefully managed presence that keeps their communities engaged between major product cycles. The rhythm of that communication is something fans learn to read over time, the way experienced observers learn to read any complex system. Gaps in the rhythm mean something. Extended gaps mean something more. And what Koenigsegg's community has been watching is not a gap. It is an absence that has the shape and weight of a decision. Consider what Koenigsegg's communication typically looks like when a rival makes a significant move. The Jesco's reveal came with complete technical transparency. The engine specifications, the theoretical top speed calculation, the aerodynamic philosophy, the name and the story behind it, all published at once, with the confidence of a brand that had nothing to hide and everything to prove. The light-speed transmission, an entirely new gearbox architecture that Koenigsegg developed from first principles, because no existing transmission could handle the torque the engine produced at the speed it needed to shift, was explained in detail, with diagrams, with engineering rationale, with the kind of technical openness that says, "We did this, we know why we did it, and we are not afraid of scrutiny." When the Agera RS set its top speed record at Pahrump in Nevada,
do you have a top speed, official top speed for it? Or, yeah?
Well, we know the top speed exactly because as we only have one gear or no gear.
277.8 miles per hour on a closed public road, averaged across two runs in opposite directions to account for wind assistance. The communication around it was immediate, precise, and total. Koenigsegg published the methodology. They published the GPS data. They invited examination because they had nothing to conceal. That is the Koenigsegg communication style. Thorough, transparent, delivered with the calm of an organization that has already done the difficult thing and is simply reporting the result. When that style disappears, when the organization that normally speaks with such precision and completeness says nothing at all.
Other hybrid cars, we know no other using it for a hybrid drive. It's because it's kind of not it's old school and unobvious in a high-tech environment.
It is noticed. It is supposed to be noticed. That is what makes the current silence so notable. In the weeks since the Tourbillon generated its global conversation, since the automotive press and the enthusiast community processed what the specifications meant, Koenigsegg has offered nothing that could be read as a counter-narrative. No teaser, no hint of a timeline, no carefully engineered disclosure of a specification detail designed to remind the community that something is coming. Nothing on the official channels. Nothing from the peripheral communications, the supplier partnerships, the engineering interviews, the small signals that fans have learned to read as advance notice of something larger. Just the particular quality of quiet that falls over a conversation when one of its participants has chosen, for reasons not yet disclosed, to stop speaking entirely. For fans who have followed this brand since the CC8S first demonstrated that a small Swedish manufacturer could embarrass the most established names in high-performance automotive history, the silence carries an emotional dimension that is difficult to fully articulate. This is not a brand they follow the way people follow products. This is a brand they follow the way people follow ideas. The idea that engineering brilliance does not require the resources of Volkswagen Group. That a small team of extraordinarily gifted people working with complete commitment to their own standard can produce machines that change what the word possible means. When the organization that carries that idea goes quiet after a rival makes its most ambitious statement in years, the worry is not primarily commercial. It is existential. It is the worry of people who need the idea to still be true. 3 theories, 1 silence. The hypercar enthusiast community is not a passive audience. It is an intelligence network, distributed across forums, social platforms, automotive publications, and the private conversations between people who have spent years developing genuine expertise in this specific corner of the automotive world. When Koenigsegg's silence became conspicuous, that network began working through the possibilities with a systematic rigor that would be impressive in any analytical context. The first school of thought, the one that draws the most optimistic adherents, holds that the silence is entirely deliberate and entirely strategic. Koenigsegg has always operated on its own timeline. The Gemera was revealed when it was ready, not when the competitive calendar suggested it should be. The Jesko Absolute specification was published when the engineering team was prepared to stand behind every number in every forum where it would be examined. If the brand is quiet now, this interpretation suggests it is because whatever is being prepared requires the kind of careful internal build-up that premature communication would compromise. The silence is not the absence of a response. It is the preparation of one that, when it arrives, will not require qualification or caveat. The second school of thought is less comfortable, but commands serious attention from the community's more analytical members. It observes that Bugatti's Tourbillon represents a genuine technological departure, not just an incremental advance on a familiar specification.
In the vast range of really expensive supercars, very few come as close in price to a Bugatti.
Cheap but a different approach to the fundamental problem of what a hypercar should be. The fully in-house hybrid architecture, the mechanical instrument philosophy, the total system integration. These are not higher numbers achieved through the same methods. They are different methods achieving different things. And matching a different approach requires a different kind of answer. Developing that answer, if it must be genuinely original rather than merely competitive, takes time that the rivalry's previous rhythm did not always demand. The silence, in this reading, may be the sound of a team that has recognized the genuine depth of the technical challenge in front of them, and chosen thinking over speaking. The third interpretation is the one that circulates most quietly, because nobody who loves this brand wants to say it too directly. Koenigsegg is a small company. Even by the standards of the ultra-low volume hypercar industry, the headcount, the facility capacity, and the engineering resource available in Ängelholm are finite in ways that Bugatti's Molsheim operation is not. The Gemera's development timeline has extended beyond its original projected production window. The Jesko's delivery program has proceeded with the kind of careful, measured pace that reflects the complexity of what is being built. The Agera RS customers who have been waiting longest know that Koenigsegg's relationship with timelines.
As the Agera RS is one of 25 originally, we got the full blue roof. Every piece on the interior here is blue.
Is defined by perfection rather than punctuality. When a small organization is simultaneously managing multiple flagship programs, each requiring the kind of engineering precision that admits no compromise, the capacity available for competitive response is not unlimited. Some members of the community wonder quietly whether the silence is not strategic patience, but stretched resource. What is striking about all three interpretations is that none of them is obviously incorrect. The fan community is not panicking without foundation, but it is also not catastrophizing without evidence. The worry is proportionate, a measured response to something genuinely unusual in the history of a rivalry that has produced very few genuinely unusual moments. Koenigsegg going quiet after a Bugatti announcement of this ambition is simply not something the recent history of these two brands would have predicted. And when the unpredicted happens in a story that has been building for 2 decades, the people closest to that story are right to ask what it means. The history of this rivalry. To understand what Koenigsegg's silence might mean, it helps to understand the full architecture of the rivalry that has produced it. Because history is the only reliable guide to what these brands do when the pressure is highest and the stakes are clearest. The rivalry as it exists today has its roots in the Veyron era. When Bugatti revealed the Veyron in 2005, 1,000 horsepower, a verified top speed of 253 miles per hour, a powertrain so technically complex that the engineering community spent years analyzing how it had been made to function reliably in a road car. It established a benchmark that the rest of the hypercar world was forced to acknowledge. The Veyron was not the fastest car that had ever been built. It was the most extreme expression of what a car built to real-world standards. Emissions regulations, reliability requirements, road legality could be made to do. That distinction mattered. And Koenigsegg's response to it was characteristically precise. Build something lighter. Build something purer. Build something that argues from different principles and arrives at comparable results through a fundamentally different engineering philosophy. The argument sharpened dramatically in 2017 when Koenigsegg conducted the Agera. RS speed runs on a closed stretch of Nevada State Route 160. 277.8 miles per hour, averaged across 2 runs in opposite directions, with full GPS documentation and independent verification. The record displaced Bugatti from the top of the production car speed hierarchy for the first time in years, and the manner in which it was achieved. On a public road, in a production specification vehicle, with complete methodological transparency, was as pointed a statement as the number itself. Koenigsegg was not just going faster. Koenigsegg was making an argument about how speed should be measured and what kind of machine deserves to be called the fastest in the world. Bugatti's answer, when it came, was the Chiron Supersport 300, a specially prepared version of the Chiron that reached 304 miles per hour at the Escalation test track in Germany, driven by Andy Wallace on a closed circuit under controlled conditions. The distinction between a closed test track and a public road was not lost on the community, and the debate about which achievement meant more generated the kind of sustained online engagement that only genuine rivalry produces. Both numbers were real. Both were significant. The argument about which mattered more was the argument that kept the community invested. Koenigsegg's response to the Chiron Supersport 300 was the Jesko Absolute, the most extreme variant of the Jesko platform, built around a 5-liter twin-turbocharged V8, producing 1,600 horsepower on standard pump fuel and 1,620 on E85 ethanol, paired with the light-speed transmission and aerodynamic configurations that the brand claimed would allow a theoretical maximum velocity of 330 miles per hour. The word theoretical carried significance. The Jesko Absolute has not been driven to its claimed maximum in publicly documented conditions. But the engineering argument behind the number was detailed enough that challenging it required engaging with the actual specifications rather than simply dismissing the claim. What the history of this rivalry demonstrates most clearly is that neither brand has ever been permanently ahead. The lead has changed. The terms of the argument have evolved from outright speed to hybrid integration to interior philosophy to manufacturing, transparency. What has been constant is the engagement, the willingness of both organizations to take each other seriously enough to produce their very best work in response to being challenged. If that engagement pattern holds, the current silence is temporary. If it does not, if what the community is observing is the beginning of a new and quieter chapter, then something has changed in a way the rivalry has no precedent for. And that possibility, however unlikely, is the deepest source of the worry that the community is currently carrying. Should fans be worried? The question this video set out to examine, whether Koenigsegg's silence is cause for worry or cause for anticipation, deserves an honest answer. Not a reassuring one, an honest one. Because the evidence does not point clearly in either direction, and pretending otherwise would be a disservice to the community that is actually living with this uncertainty. The case for worry is not trivial and should not be dismissed. Bugatti's Tourbillon represents the most technically ambitious product, the French
Bugatti. They've lived up to their reputation with their newest model, the Tourbillon. It's their first ever hybrid model.
Manufacturer has presented in years. Perhaps the most conceptually original product in their entire post-Veyron history. The in-house hybrid architecture is a genuine engineering achievement that reflects a commitment of development resource that cannot be quickly replicated. The interior philosophy is genuinely unprecedented in automotive history and signals a direction that Bugatti intends to sustain. When a rival makes that kind of move, a move that is not just faster or more powerful but differently reasoned, the expected response is not silence. And yet silence is what the community has received. There is also the structural reality of what Koenigsegg is managing simultaneously. The Gemera, the Jesko production program, the ongoing development commitments that come with building cars to this standard in these numbers. These are not light burdens. The organization in Engelholm is extraordinary in what it achieves relative to its size, but relative to its size is a real qualifier. The resource available for developing and communicating a genuine response to the Tourbillon, one that meets Bugatti's technical ambition on its own terms, rather than simply publishing a competing specification number, is finite. If the silence is a capacity constraint rather than a strategic pause, the timeline for a response is longer than the community's patience may comfortably accommodate. But the case against worry is grounded in something more fundamental than hope. It is grounded in what Koenigsegg has actually demonstrated over 2 decades of this rivalry. This is the organization that built the world's fastest production car in a town of 15,000 people in southern Sweden. This is the brand whose founder personally drives the machines he builds, whose engineering team publishes technical papers that academics cite.
The story of Bugatti begins with its founder, Ettore Bugatti, a visionary engineer who established the brand in 1909.
Whose entire commercial identity rests on the belief that the best thing they have ever made is not yet the best thing they are capable of making. That belief does not disappear because a rival has made an impressive car. Koenigsegg has gone quiet before. Not often. The brand's communication rhythm is generally consistent. But in the periods immediately preceding their most significant announcements, there has occasionally been a stillness, a narrowing of the signal, a pulling back of the normal flow of information as the team focuses entirely on what is being prepared rather than what is being communicated. The silence that precedes a Koenigsegg announcement is a different kind of silence from the silence that precedes nothing. And the community's task, difficult as it is to sit with the uncertainty of not yet knowing which kind this is. The honest answer is that nobody outside Engelholm knows. What is certain is that Bugatti has made a move that demands a response from anyone who takes this rivalry seriously. What is certain is that Koenigsegg has not yet provided one in public. What remains entirely open is whether the silence is the sound of a team under pressure it has not yet resolved, or the focused, deliberate stillness of an organization preparing to say something that makes the waiting worthwhile. The history of this rivalry suggests the latter. The current absence of evidence confirms neither. And in that gap, that charged, uncertain space between what has happened and what has not yet been revealed, the most interesting automotive story of the moment continues to write itself. Quietly, precisely. In the particular register of a brand that has never said anything it was not entirely ready to mean. The tourbillon is real. The silence is real. Somewhere between those two facts sits the most important story in the hypercar world right now. Bugatti changed the conversation. Koenigsegg has not answered it yet. Whether that means trouble, or whether something extraordinary is being built in Engelholm that none of us have seen yet, only time will tell. If this video puts words to what you have been feeling about this rivalry, hit that like button right now. Drop your verdict in the comments. Is Koenigsegg in trouble or about to shut everyone up? Subscribe to Stars of America. When Koenigsegg finally speaks, you will want to be here.